am literally overheating already. Hi, my name is Jem. Welcome back to my channel. If you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that I'm a pretty negative person that never reads a book in a vacuum. Like, I never read a book just for the book. I always read reviews and ask my friends and just consult the internet before I read anything. Which is sometimes really bad because I end up going into books with really low expectations, or if I go in blind, I'm generally disappointed in what I read. So I thought I would change gears, be a little bit more positive for a change, and talk about books that I had either low or no expectations for, but that completely blew everything out of the water and ended up being really great books. The first one is Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't my favourite series in the world, and there is quite a few problems with this series, but I will say this. It is great if you read books for characters and character development and world building. Each book in this saga, there's 4, each book ascends so beautifully, and I really enjoyed this series when I read it. It follows Nora and she falls in love with a fallen angel called Patch, and I generally stay away from stories like that because replace the fucking fallen angel with a werewolf or a vampire or a fairy, and I feel like I'm reading the exact same book. But this series, as I said, it grows beautifully. Nora as a person just really grows and shapes, and you know, it's just such a great story to read the entirety of. So if you've read this and you kind of feel so-so about it, persevere, read the second one, read the third one, read the fourth one. It was really good, and I would really recommend this if you're in the market for a fallen angel story. Stay away from that book by what's her name, Lauren Kate, Fallen, the one that was going to have a movie for a second there. Stay away from that. That's shit. This, however, this is really good. The next one is a little like controversial, and it's definitely not my favorite book. It was fun. It's Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. So this is the companion novel to Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, which I didn't like. I found the representation of anxiety was a little problematic. But it follows a girl called Kath, Fangirl this is, follows a girl called Kath who is a fangirl, and the fandom she is in is about to publish the 8th book, and she wrote a huge fan fiction of what she thought the 8th book should look like, and this is that book. This book is a little problematic in the fact that it relies on the reader having read books like Harry Potter, having an understanding of how magic works, because this is the 8th book in the series, so it's asking the reader to bring their own information into the book, which is why I had such a negative bias going in. I'm like, why would I read a book if it's asking me to read books that don't even come from the same author, let alone the same series? Like, I was frustrated going into this, but I was on holiday and I read all the books that I brought 5 books and I read them all. And in the local Target that was there, this was the only one that I like wanted to give a go. I'm glad I did. It was good. It was kind of like a useless read, but it was fun while it lasted. The next one is Resurrection by Derek Landy. This is like the millionth book in the Skullduggery Pleasant series, which might be surprising if you've watched any of my videos before, because I love Skullduggery Pleasant. I love Derek Landy's new series, Demon Road. I love his worlds. So you might be wondering why this book is in here. Basically, I think it was in 2015, the Skullduggery Pleasant series wrapped up. So basically, Stephanie and Skullduggery as our main characters were kind of done. So this is the new kind of part 2 to the Skullduggery world. Obviously, it's still Skullduggery Pleasant, and Stephanie and Skullduggery are still here, but it kind of encompasses more of the world past what Stephanie sees of it. I loved this. There is a gender fluid character, and it's really educational if you've got a friend going through transitioning or gender dysphoria, because what's his name, Owen, his friend is transgender and gender fluid, and so it's kind of him coming to terms with the new pronouns, and it deals with that really beautifully. It deals with grief, and Stephanie has really, really bad PTSD, and it handles that so delicately and so beautifully, and I was not at all disappointed to be removing myself a little bit from Stephanie and Skullduggery, because the new cast I was introduced to was just as phenomenal. The next book is A Moveable Feast by Ernest Hemingway. I talk about Hemingway a lot, so you would think that I was born with like fiesta in my hands, like I was a newborn baby and I exited the womb carrying For Whom the Bell Tolls. But I had to start somewhere. So my Hemingway journey started a couple years ago when I stumbled across this book. It was $7, it was on sale. I just decided to pick it up because I was getting interested into the jazz age. I had just finished reading The Great Gatsby. I had picked up an Ezra Pound book, which I didn't really like, but I was like, why not? And everyone makes a joke about Hemingway being like a shitty author, but I picked it up and I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal, and yeah, I wasn't expecting anything out of this book, but I got everything out of this book. It's a mini memoir about Hemingway in Paris with his wife, meeting Fitzgerald, meeting Zelda, Gertrude Stein, Ezra Pound. They're all in here in this short little binder. I love it. I'll stop talking about this book one day, but today is not that day. It's The Messenger by Marcus Zusak. I love this book. I talk about it all the time. It's in my favoritist books ever video. I fucking love this book, and I expected nothing from it. I had read The Book Thief prior and had loved that book, but I just loved it. Like, I didn't feel really passionate about that book like I feel with this one. It's so good. I won't go too in depth. It's about a guy called Ed who gets these cards and they lead him to these strange places, to these strange people. It's not like fantasy or anything. It's very much literary fiction, but I would highly recommend this book. The next one is in the same vein of Carry On. It kind of relies a little bit on the reader having past magical knowledge. It's The Iron Child by Cassandra Clare and Holly Black. I went into this, and this is before I was kind of into middle grade. Like, I moved away from young adult, and instead now I'm interested in like the polarities, like a middle grade and literary fiction. But I went into this being like, I'll give it a go. I bought it mostly for the cover. I used to have it like displayed. I wasn't expecting to love this as much as I did. Carl, the main character, is disabled due to an accident in his childhood. He injured his leg and it's pretty much inoperable. It's like shorter than his other ones where he walks with a chronic limp, and it plays a consecutive role throughout the series. It's not something that's introduced and then brought up for tension, like it's constantly there. This is really good. I think the world is my favorite part, and also it's a bit of an anti-hero story, but it's so beautifully written that you're rooting for the anti-hero the whole time. I love it. I love it so much. I haven't gotten around to reading like the fourth one, but soon. Same vein of The Messenger. This is a book by an author that I read and then went into a different, lesser known book, not expecting much, but got the world from it. It's Noah Barleywater Runs Away by John Boyne, who is the author of The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which I don't like. I don't like that book. If you go to any Holocaust museums or any World War II museums and you listen to literally anyone talk about it, they do not recommend The Boy in the Striped Pajamas if you are beginning your historical journey of learning, because it's borderline offensive, the events that happen, and it really does make a bit of a show out of the Holocaust. This was published a few years before that novel, and I love it so much more. I will not say anything about this book because you need to go in completely blind. The twist at the end had me shooketh to my core. It's literally about a boy called Noah who runs away, but it is so much more than that, and it has really like cutesy pictures. I adore this book. It's so good, and my best friend read it the other day, so Jasmine, I hope you loved it as much as I did, but it was so good and I love it so much. Last but not least on my list is one that I have spoken about before. It's Messenger of Fear by Michael Grant. So I picked this up because I was bored one day. You know when you're in the mood not to read anything that you've heard a million things about? Like, my mum bought me this book and I always feel the need to read whatever my mum buys me. So I picked this up randomly, fucking loved it. I thought it was so captivating, it was mesmerizing from start to finish. The suspense in it was amazing, the plot twist was amazing. Buckle me down, boys. This was so good and I loved it. I loved it so much. So I would recommend this. It's about a girl who I can't remember her name, Mara. She wakes up, she only knows her name, she doesn't know how old she is, she doesn't know literally anything except her name, Mara, and she wakes up and this guy leads her on a journey, and when you find out what the journey was about, you'll be shook to your core. It is so good. 10 out of 10 would recommend. So that wraps up this video. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. But until next time, bye guys.